I didn't do anything for Russia. I've done nothing for Russia. Hillary Clinton gave him 20% of our uranium. Hillary Clinton did a reset. Remember, with the stupid plastic button that made us all look like a bunch of jerks? Here, take a look. He looked at her like, what the hell is she doing?
Which represents what President Obama and Vice President Biden and I have been saying. And that is, we want to reset our relationship. And
Let's do it together.
so we will do it together, okay?
Thank you very much.
You are
Thank
very
you.
welcome. We worked hard to get the right Russian word. Do you think we got it?
You get it wrong.
I got it wrong.
It should be перезагрузка. And this says перегрузка, which means overcharge.
Well, we won't let you do that to us, I promise.
What the hell is she doing with that cheap plastic button?
On day
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative
that
facts?
Alternative facts.
We know that 420,000 people used the D.C. Metro public transit yesterday, which actually compares to 317,000 that used it for President Obama's last inaugural. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
To become unsustainable.
Kellyanne,
and General Flynn.
That makes no sense.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so.
Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, is here in Studio 57. Welcome.
But at the end of the day, it can't. Hold on. It can't be. It can't be. Jonathan, thanks. I'll let Kristen talk.
New York Times report that was cited.
Okay. So I apologize that NBC News' reporting is based on the New York Times false reporting. But at the end of how can it be accurate reporting, Glenn? If
It can be
okay,
true.
so the Secretary of Homeland Security just stood up, and so you're calling him a liar?
He didn't say he saw the specifics.
Jonathan, I'm talking to Glenn. I'm talking to. You said that.
As Joe mentioned, at times in recent days, Kellyanne Conway has struggled to be on the same page, to say the least, as the rest of the staff in the White House. That she books herself on these shows. We know for a fact she tries to book herself on this show. I won't do it because I don't believe in fake news or information that is not true. And that is every time I've ever seen her on television, something's askew, off, or incorrect. Another piece of news.
Right. She's out of the loop. She's in none of the key meetings. She goes out and books herself often. And
everybody, I will say, Kellyanne Conway does not need to text our show, at least as long as I'm on it, because it's not happening here.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, you mentioned Russia. Let's talk about some serious issues that have come up in the last week that you have had to deal with as President of the United States.
Okay.
You mentioned the vessel, the spy vessel off the coast of the United States.
Not good.
There was a ballistic missile test that many interpret as
Not
a
good.
violation of an
Not
agreement
good.
between the two countries, and a Russian plane buzzed a U.S. destroyer.
Not good.
I listened to you
During
during the
Excuse me.
campaign.
When did it happen? It happened when, if you were Putin right now, you would say, hey, we're back to the old games with the United States. There's no way Trump can ever do a deal with us because the public, you have to understand, if I was just brutal on Russia right now, just brutal, people would say, you would say, oh, isn't that wonderful? But I know you well enough. Then you would say, oh, he was too tough. He shouldn't have done that. Look,
I'm just
all
trying
of
to
the
find out
things,
your
wait a minute,
orientation to
wait,
those.
excuse me just
I'm
one
just trying to
second.
find out what you're
All
gonna
of
do
those
about it, Mr.
things that you
President.
mentioned are very recent Because probably Putin assumes that he's not going to be able to make a deal with me because it's politically not popular for me to make a deal. You know why? Because they shouldn't know. And eventually you guys are going to get tired of asking that question. So when you ask me, what am I going to do with the ship, the Russian ship as an example, I'm not going to tell you. But hopefully I won't have to do anything, but I'm not going to tell you. Okay.
Thanks.
Can I just ask you, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Okay. Here's another beauty.
It's a good line. Impartial, free and fair.
Yeah, sure. Now, in the meantime, we're vetting very, very strongly. Very, very strongly. But we need help, and we need help by getting that executive order passed.
Just a brief follow-up, but if it's so urgent, why not introduce...
Yes, go ahead.
Why not introduce...
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just was hoping that we could get a yes or no answer on one of these questions involving Russia. Can you say whether you are aware that anyone who advised your campaign had contacts with Russia during the course of the election?
Well, I told you, General Flynn obviously was dealing, so that's one person, but he was dealing as he should have been.
During the election?
No, nobody that I know of. Nobody
so you're not aware of any contacts during the course
look.
of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Yeah, I know you have to get up and ask a question so important. Russia is a ruse. I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years. Don't speak to people from Russia. Not that I wouldn't. I just have nobody to speak to. I spoke to Putin twice. He called me on the election. I told you this. And he called me on the inauguration a few days ago. We had a very good talk, especially the second one. Lasted for a pretty long period of time. I'm sure you probably get it because it was classified, so I'm sure everybody in this room perhaps has it. How much longer should we stay here, folks? 5 more minutes. Is that okay? 5? Wait, let's see. I want to find a friendly reporter. Used to say it was John. You keep saying you have no time. Go ahead. Yes. Oh, this is going to be a bad question, but that's okay. Good, because I enjoy watching you on television. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Mr. President, I need to find out from you. You said something as it relates to inner cities. That was one of your platforms during your campaign. Now
Fix the inner cities. Yeah.
Fixing the inner cities. What will be that fix and your urban agenda, as well as your HBCU executive order that's coming out this afternoon? And your urban agenda, as well as your HBCU executive order that's coming out this afternoon. See, it wasn't bad, was it?
That was very professional and very good.
Yeah, very
we'll be in.
Our next guest is actually working for the Trump administration. America First met Omarosa as the supervillain of the first season of The Apprentice, and now she's working for him again as assistant to the... No, you never heard that, Omarosa?
Not supervillain.
Oh, just
That's
villain.
like
Okay.
TV. That's big screen stuff.
Now
I like that.
she's working as the director of communications for the Office of Public Liaison. Please welcome Omarosa.
The criticism has been in the African-American community that Donald Trump doesn't really care about the community, and in fact, he's just using you as optics.
First of all, no one uses me. No one uses me. First and foremost, let me just tell you a little bit about myself, and then you can understand how I got where I am. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, in the Westlake Projects, a housing project. So I am the embodiment of the American dream. I grew up on welfare, on Section 8 housing. My father was killed when I was 7 years old. I went to public schools. I went to Central Ohio, got to Howard University, and started to work in politics. So I earned my way to sit in the White House. No one gave me anything, okay?
I just want to know if you're going to take his last name.
Oh, of Of course, he's my husband. He's going to be my husband in April.
right.
And I'm so happy that he's here with me, and he brings me such joy. And I hope that you one day can find that kind of joy in your life.
Oh, please.
When they go low, we go high.
That's right. And I feel like I could get high right now.
Omarosa got into a bit of a tiff with a reporter that she disagrees with. Now, funny backstory to what I'm about to report. Apparently, Omarosa and the reporter that she got into an argument with, April Ryan, used to be best friends. In fact, April Ryan wanted Omarosa to be in her wedding.
Yeah.
But now things have actually devolved between them. So apparently they engaged in a huge argument outside of the White House, outside of the Oval Office last week. So the argument, which escalated to the point that Secret Service needed to get involved, was a result of accusations that the reporter, American Urban Radio Network's White House correspondent, April D. Ryan, was, quote, manipulated by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So Manigault, that's Omarosa, stood right in my face like she was going to hit me. I said, "You better back up." She thought I would be bullied. I won't be. That's a quote from Ryan. Also, during the altercation, Ryan and Manigault Manigault told her that she was among several African-American journalists who were the subject of White House dossiers. Manigault had previously said that Trump is, quote, keeping a list of opponents, though at the time she was referring to Republicans who voted against Trump. And Ryan's response to that was, good for you, good for you.
You keep saying you have no ties. Go ahead. Yes. This is going to be a bad question, but that's okay. Good, because I enjoy watching you on television. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Mr. President, I need to find out from you. You said something as it relates to inner cities. That was one of your platforms during your campaign. Now
Fix the inner cities. Yeah.
Fixing the inner cities. What will be that fix and your urban agenda, as well as your HBCU executive order that's coming out this afternoon? See, it wasn't bad, was it?
That was very professional and very good.
Oh,
Yeah,
very
we'll be
professional.
announcing the order in a little while, and I'd rather let the order speak for itself, but it'll be something I think that will be very good for everybody concerned. But we'll talk to you about that after we do the announcement. So we're going to do a lot of work on the inner cities. I have great people lined up to help with the inner cities.
When you say the inner cities, are you going to include the CBC, Mr. President, in your conversations with your urban agenda, your inner city agenda, as well as?
Am I going to include?
Are you going to include the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional?
Well, I
Hispanic
would. I
Caucus,
tell you what. Do you want to
as
set
well
up the
as
meeting? Do you want to set up the meeting?
No.
Are they friends of
I'm just
yours?
a reporter.
No, set up the meeting.
I know some of them, but I'm sure.
Let's
they're
go
watching
set up
right
a meeting.
And the Congressional.
Well, I
Hispanic
would. I
Caucus,
tell you what. Do you want to
as
set
well
up the
as
meeting? Do you want to set up the meeting?
No.
Are they friends of
I'm
yours?
just a reporter.
No, set up the meeting.
I know some of them, but I'm sure.
Let's
they're
go
watching
set up
right
a
now.
meeting. I would love to meet with the Black Caucus. I think it's great, the Congressional Black Caucus. I think it's great. I actually thought I had a meeting with Congressman Cummings, and he was all excited. And then he said,
"Oh, I can't move. It might be bad for me politically. I can't
have that meeting." I was all set to have the meeting. You know, we called him and called him, and he was all set. I spoke to him on the phone. Very nice guy.
I hear he wanted that meeting with you as well.
He wanted it, but we called. They can't make a meeting with him. Every day I walk in, I said, I would like to meet with him because I do want to solve the problem. But he probably was told by Schumer or somebody like that, some other lightweight. He was probably told, don't meet with Trump. It's bad politics. Every day I walk in, I said, I would like to meet with him because I do want to solve the problem. But he probably was told by Schumer or somebody like that,
Barely 3 weeks into his presidency, Donald Trump has lost one of his closest advisers. Retired Army General Michael Flynn, a man renowned for his close ties to Russia, resigned amid allegations that he misled senior officials about conversations between him and the Russian ambassador a few weeks before the Trump administration took office.
He may end up in Donald Trump's presidential cabinet if Trump wins. That's what some insiders are saying about former UN Ambassador John Bolton. Bolton stopped in Cincinnati today for a Steve Chabot fundraiser. He spoke exclusively with Local 12's Jeff Hirsch.
This is a picture lots of Republicans like: former UN Ambassador John Bolton and Congressman Steve Chabot. But some see another possible picture: Bolton as Secretary of State if Donald Trump becomes president.
Okay, so Rudy Giuliani and John Bolton are reportedly the favored picks for Secretary of State. Bolton is a former U.S. ambassador to the UN, would be an aggressive selection for Trump. He's called for the bombing of Iran to keep the nation from developing nuclear weapons.
Okay, so it's not Flynn, it's not Harward. The question now is who's it going to be? So let me just play some sound because Manu Raju is excellent, and grab some sound from Senator Ted Cruz, who has this idea to be the president's national security advisor.
One person who I think would be very, very strong is John Bolton. John is someone who is very well known here on the Hill. Republicans and Democrats know John Bolton well. He's someone who understands the world. He understands the threats of radical Islamic terrorism. He understands the threats of an over-aggressive Putin. And at the same time, I think he has demonstrated an understanding that we should be reluctant to use military force, that we should do so only when absolutely necessary. And so I think there are lots of good people that are being considered, but I think someone like John Bolton would be a terrific choice.
Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.